Well, welcome to another edition of Painting with the Studio for Art and Craft. I'm Jackie, and not surprisingly, I'm with the Studio for Art and Craft in Cobleskill, New York. And today we're going to be doing our Flower Power platter. Try saying that 3 times real fast. So actually, the Flower Power platter can also be, watch this, a Flower Power plate. So this one's got a light blue background and the flowers are all done in blues. But this is the original one, which can also be done on a plate. The plate is the same size as the inside of the platter. They are a little bit different, and as we go through the design today, I'm going to show you, where there are these minor differences and how I actually did them. But I'm going to get you started. So for this project, you're going to need your kit, which is going to be your base-coated plate or platter. You're going to get here, I'm going to put that up here, okay, so you can see it. And then you're going to get a tracing on some tissue paper, and you'll have a red or other color Sharpie that'll come with your kit, and then a couple of brushes and your glazes. So you'll just need a container of water and a paper towel to dry your brush off, just to pat your brush dry on. We don't really need to dry it. But the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put your pattern. Now your pattern won't be in red. I put this one in red so it'd be easy to see. And you're going to lay that down so that the edges of it are basically in line with your platter, and then you're going to trace. And I'm going to try to trace as quickly as I humanly can here. That's going to take, I guess I'm not a really fast tracer. Guess that's what I'm going to learn today. So you guys can ignore me while you do this. I'm just going to pick this up so you can see how that goes through. Can you see that? Onto the plate. And so that's what you want to look for when you're doing yours. All right, because that's what we're trying to do. This is a way to get the design on there. Believe it or not, the Sharpie will fire off in the kiln. Okay. This is something, you can do this step ahead of time if you want to, which I guess is a silly thing to be saying because you're probably sitting down to paint now. So there is no real ahead of time. But this is the first thing you need to do, is to transfer the design onto your plate. Now, to be honest, you don't have to be completely careful about the tracing. The one thing you do want to do is, if you find that yours is not aligning at the edges exactly the same way, you can adjust it. So what do I mean by that? I'll show you what I mean. Let's see. So over here, for example, when I'm doing this flower, if I feel that this edge is too close to the end, I'm just going to come and bring it in a little bit. Okay? Because I don't want it to go up on the edge, especially if you want to do that polka dot edging like I had on the sample platter that I showed you. You're going to need to leave room for that. All right, don't even worry about mistakes, believe it or not, because better to just ignore the mistake. You'll know it's a mistake when you go to paint it. You'll see what I mean. All right, so I've got mine, as you can probably hear. It's on it's not on a Lazy Susan. Mine's on a banding wheel. Whoops, that just came off of there. So you always do want to try to hold it down so it doesn't go dancing like mine just did. Never take both hands off the tracing. That's kind of tracing 101. I should have known better. And again, here's another example of one where I didn't. This one goes way up here on the side. So the other thing I can do is just do part of it. But the other thing, what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to show you how I'm just going to change the shape of it. Okay, because it doesn't really matter. I'm not even going to put this little mark on there because otherwise it's going to be up on my side. And the truth of the matter is that is perfectly reasonable. There's no reason not to do it that way. Okay, if you don't want to put the polka dot frame around it, then it doesn't matter if it goes up on the side. So that's another way to look at it. But it's just if you want to try to put a circle around the edging of it, then you're going to not want your flower design. I'll show you a couple of things you can do. You can do kind of partial, well, I'll show it to you when we get there, but not now. Obviously, I'm tracing as fast as my little hands can trace. But I'm going to show you a couple of different design ideas at the end for doing some of the background. I'm just going to check this over here. Yes, that's perfect. Since I lifted up a few times, I kind of wanted to just make sure that I hadn't messed it up too badly, and it turns out I didn't mess it up at all. Go me, as my daughter would say. Okay. So since I use this same design for the plate, which has an edge that you go off of, this part of the flower just sort of ends here. If you're on the bottom of your platter, you can just complete that petal. You don't even need to draw it on. I mean, this is not the kind of drawing where, this is not like paint by number, where you have to stay within the lines per se. This is a much more fluid kind of a look. So you're going to see that you've got some flexibility in terms of where you actually paint. And it's really not a big deal if you make a change even after you've traced something, because the tracing will fire out in the kiln. All right, so I'm just going to finish up my last flower here. That was pretty quick tracing, I must admit. So there we go. So I'm going to take that off of there, and there's my outline right there. Okay, so our next step then is we're going to start painting. So we're going to start with the red. I always wet my brush a little bit, and then I just take off the extra water. Let me show you that. I do it on the paper towel, but that's not in the frame, so I can't do that for you. And this is called one-stroke painting. And it's called one-stroke painting because you're only supposed to paint, one stroke. You're not going to go and paint it over and over again. You're going to take your brush. You're going to, what they call, load your brush, get a good amount of glaze on there, and start. You can really start anywhere. It doesn't matter. But let's just say I'm going to start over here, and I'm just going to lay it down. Now, remember, there's the most paint at the beginning, so you really just want to lay it down lightly to start with, and then you can press it down more as you come around, okay, and bring it down over here. I know it's an uneven amount. You can come back and spread this one out a little bit more, but this is actually the design. So you're not supposed to have a lot of paint. So I'm coming down here, I'm pressing it lightly, and then as I come around, I'm spreading out my brush, which is perfectly width-sized, and I'm just painting down into there. You always have the, whoops, I had a lot of paint on there. So you always have the option to add more paint. Okay, so do not worry if you really think, I wish I had more. Let this layer dry. Okay, and then put another layer on. It will change how it looks. You will not get that kind of watercolor look, okay, that you saw in the sample. And I will show you the sample again once I get some of this on here. All right, but that's basically what my first coat looks like for this outside of this big flower. Okay, I'm just touching it because I'm just showing you things, but it is very uneven. It's like over here I might say, you know what, I did not have enough glaze here, so just go ahead, but try not to paint it in like a real painting. All right, so we're going to go to all the areas where there'll be red. Okay, so we're going to do this other large flower over here. All right, and again, same thing. We're going to come and we're going to do around the edges first on this one. Now this one is filled in with red too, so I'm just going to come in and do this. It does cover up those lines I put on. They might show through, but on the other hand, you don't quote really need them. All right, so I'm coming here, I'm coming all the way around, so I know where my outside is, and then I'm going to fill it in with my strokes. Quick strokes. since you don't always get the same amount of glaze on your brush every time, you can certainly go over it if you need to. I'm not going to caution you again. I've already said what I had to say about trying not to do it like it's a paint by number and the whole thing has to be has to be an even consistency. Okay, oops, sorry I hit the camera with my head because I'm standing. I almost always stand when I paint. All right. So I'm hoping that you can see. It's hard for me to see because the light is so bright here that it's hard to look at the camera afterwards. Yeah, I think you can see there that there is some nice inconsistency, and that's really what I'm after. All right. And so we're also going, so I have the side of the, oh, you know what? We have to do the inside here, and that's important. I want to do the inside of this one. Believe it or not, this inside that I'm painting now, this is something you are going to put a second coat on later. Okay, spoiler alert, because this is going to be a darker than the outside. But again, for the first coat, it's not really about stroke, get it all filled. I just want to get the color down. The next coat is what'll make it darker and also a little bit more even. Right now, I'm just getting that first coat down. Okay, and I just decided on the spur of the moment that I didn't want it that big. So that's fine. I can ignore my markings. I have that right to ignore the markings. So the other piece that's red is going to be just the inside of this flower. So if you have the big flower that we just worked on to your right, then just to the left side is going to be the flower I'm working on now. The outside will be orange, and then this is also red. All right, there's a lot of red here, so obviously they're red flowers. Duh. Okay, so again, just filling it in, trying to be as one-strokey as possible. Come around and then give it that nice watercolor look. Oop. Okay. Okay. And then this one also over here. So we have the two little flowers, we're going to leave them alone, and then the leaf, we'll leave it alone. And then over on the other side of those two little flowers is another one that kind of looks like the one we just did. So I'm going to paint that one in. One of the things that's interesting about this technique is it is kind of hard to get a good sense of what it's going to look like. The only thing I will tell you is you just kind of want all your strokes going in the same direction. But beyond that, there's not a lot to really stress on. All right, and then this one over here is also going to be red. It's got these insides, so we're going to kind of go, this is going to be brilliant, go around the inside, try to leave them plain. All right. So this is the one stroke come to life on this one. It's just perfect. Where we just bring it up, bring it around, bring it down. And I'm going to come back in and grab a little bit underneath there, but oops, too much paint. Sometimes I do try to do too much with one stroke. If you need to get more, you can do that. I think probably this is one of those Jackie moments that I love so much where I say you can always add more, you can't add less. So if you do need to come back and grab some more, you can do that. All right, so we're going to do each of these. Remember that when we go back and we put some of the next level coats on, we will be touching on these as well. So the fact that all your edges don't, match up perfectly is not a big deal. One of the ways that this design kind of meets my criteria for a fun to paint with a group plate is that it does come out a little bit differently for everybody. Depends on how loose you are. I mean, not as a person, as a painter. Whether you have loose strokes or whether you have very tight strokes will make a difference ultimately in terms of what it looks like. So I've kind of got, and so you can see, the nice thing about the one stroke too is you can, once it starts to dry, you can see where your strokes begin and end. And if you have something that begins and ends in a weird place, you can just put another light coat over it. And then, oops, we just have this one up here. Make sure that's, yeah, you can see that. I'm just going to move the plate for a second. That's just going to be the outside petals again. We're going to do the one stroke. This one I could probably get more than one petal on each brush full. Maybe 2.5. Depends on how full your brush is, you know. Whoops. Let's see if I can. Sorry, I have to really stop doing that because that's not easy for you to see if I suddenly do it, but it makes it easier for me to paint. When I always paint from my side of strength. I'm left-handed, so all my painting is being done on the left, if you will. All right, and then we've got this one here and this one here. So this one's also got to have its outer petals red. And I'm going to go over, you know, where all the red bits are after I get this on, so you can check yours as well. Make it a little bit easier for you. This plate has been base coated, as you are well aware, so you don't have to worry about having enough paint on there. It's what makes the watercolor technique work. And now I'm just going to do this one other little flower here, just do the outside petals. I really am holding the brush somewhat loose. I mean, I'm holding it perfectly tight, but I'm saying I'm just kind of holding onto it somewhat loosely. And the bud, don't forget the bud, so that the bristles of the brush are doing their thing. When you paint with a round brush, you're really kind of going for this loose kind of a feeling. All right, so that's what I've got for you. Just checking it out. So let me just go over it. So if you position your plate, your plate or platter, let's do it so this is in the bottom right. So in the red, we've got the outside rim of the giant flower, and then we have one coat so far on the inside. And then to the left of that, we have this bud down here. Then we have this one here, and we have the inside of this flower. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we have the flower over here that's got, where you're just leaving those little insides naked right now in the middle. And we have a small flower up here. And the third large flower up here. And then we have, pulling it down so you can see it, 1, 2, 3 up here. 3 petals on this bud, and then this flower. It seemed like a lot more when we were doing it. Now, while I'm here, and since the paint has dried in here, I'm just going to go ahead and put my second layer of red on here. And this is just on the inside, and all I'm doing is coming back and putting it right over the first layer. Okay? Yours will probably dry, you know, especially if you painted this early on, you'll find it'll dry pretty quickly. If you don't have a turntable, which you probably don't, obviously that's fine. Just go ahead and use the paper towel that we have to help turn your plate around, or else pick up your plate and turn it, rather than like just sort of dragging it on the ground, you know, just lift and turn. Because otherwise you'll scrape all the glaze off the back of the plate. And I can't, especially on a white platter, I won't really see that until it comes out of the kiln, which is really not when we want to see that. All right, so, sorry, coffee time. So now we're going to do some orange, all right? So we're going to paint our inside of here with the orange. The difference here is not much in terms of the technique. I tend to start at the top and come down one side and then the other side. And then just lift the brush up a little bit as you come down to the skinnier parts. Notice how I'm not worrying that I'm not right up against the line, because I can just come in and move the paint around. What I really don't want to do is keep putting more paint on here until I really have to. So I need a little bit more to finish this one. And I can come up from the bottom too. All right, just want to do it lightly so it's not colored in night, so I've not had that before. So maybe, I don't know if you disappeared for a second, but fortunately I wasn't really doing anything too interesting. I'm just filling in with orange. All right, and I'm just making sure that my strokes are kind of light and going up and down. For this technique, it is not the end of the world if you leave a little bit of white showing. Like, I'm going to show you what I mean in a second when I finish this one up. You can see that, right? Yeah. So where did I just see some? So I had a little bit of white in here. Oh, no, I had a better spot. Oh, like I have a little white over here. That's okay. That'll work with the design. Okay, it actually becomes kind of like a highlight, so don't worry about it. All right, so nice light strokes filling this one. This is our biggest one to fill in with the orange. The idea is not to try to overwhelm it and make it kind of a solid color. And whoop, last one. Let the brush do the work. That's why we pay it the big bucks. Seriously, brushes are expensive. All right, so I don't want my lines going in every crazy direction, so I'm kind of cleaning myself up here, but I'm trying not to put more paint on it. All right, so that's what my inside of my big orange is going to look like. And now I'm going to do the same thing over here with the orange, and I'm just going to pull it along. Now this one, pretty much, I can almost like wiggle it along, okay, for each petal. So, not put too much paint on that one. So just start my brush, come up here, and then just wiggle it out to the shape of that petal. And I'll come up and clean it just so my strokes are all going in the same direction. One of the cool things about the watercolor look, if you will, the washed look, is that you can really see where your strokes are. So it's not hard to clean it up and make sure they're all kind of going in they're all working together. I don't mind puddles of glaze somewhere, like right here I have a lot more glaze than I have over here. That actually will look excellent to have it uneven, but I just do want my strokes to kind of look like they were put down by the same person. Okay, and then what I'm going to do next is on this flower, I'm going to come by and I want to actually put a second layer of the orange on there. So I'm going to just kind of highlight this one with the orange on each side. Okay. And then we're going to do the orange inside as well for this one. And for that, we're going to come back. We're going to get one layer on there for now, and then come back and put a second darker coat on it, just like we did with the red on this flower. All right, so let's make sure that's coming along good for you guys. You can see that. I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit because my light is changing. This is the problem. I thought I'd use natural light today, and I'm going to be sorry, I can tell. Other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come and I'm going to do my one stroke down each of these. Kind of a teardrop. This is a pretty easy stroke because it's just one. Doesn't matter if I go over some of the red. Okay. And in here, I'm going to do the little petals, if you will, also. Similar kind of a thing. We're just going to do like a little blob, fill it in. So it almost looks like a little flower inside a flower. And this little one's going to have this is going to be orange inside too. So same thing. I'm just going to make those little swirlies to fill that in. Okay. What else I got? This one needs its orange middle. Pretty much anything that's got a red outside is going to have an orange middle. So, spoiler alert. So that's what I'm going through. I'm looking at now. I think that's pretty much everything that I want. Sometimes I like to highlight a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm twirling for you. It's probably frustrating, but on these guys, I'm just going to add the tiniest bit of orange because it's just a look that I like. I like it to look like they come from, you know, a slightly later. So I'm just putting a little, just not even redipping my brush, just putting a little, oh, I just noticed a flower I forgot before on the red, so give me 2 seconds. So you see how I have this flower over here? My big flower's on the right, this flower's on the left. There's actually a little tiny flower here I did not do in the red before the bud, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. All right. It's really not that much because most of this is green, but I'm just going to go ahead and add that in because obviously I need to do it. Okay, so that's our red and our orange. I don't think I have more. Oh, I like my little orange highlights, don't I? So I'm going to highlight this a little bit too, just along the edges very lightly, just so it looks like it's popped out of there. I'm going to do that on this one too. Okay. And this one's not dry yet, so I'm going to have to come back and put my second coat of orange on there. So the next thing I'm going to do is take my light blue and all these little standalone flowers I'm going to do in the light blue. Now, mind you, I always say this, you can do whatever colors you want. So if you don't like the blue, just do them all in the orange. Okay, but I'm just going to come back in any standalone flower like this. I'm going to, using this one stroke technique. It might be better to call it like a one dip technique to think if you think about it. Because the main thing I want to do is make sure that I am not painting. All right. So there's several of these. This is number 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's number 5. 6. 7. I feel like the Count from Sesame Street. 7. And 8. And I had 9. Where did it go? Here it is. And 9. I think it's so funny. It freaked me out the first time I did this with the Sharpie. It's like, we promise it won't show. It's like, I don't believe you. And it didn't. So, okay. So that'll take us through our light blue. And now we're going to do the lighter of the greens, the lime green. We're going to do the leaves. Or, you know, so I'm going to just, again, one stroke is the concept. So I'm going to take the leaves first, and I'm going to pull the paint down. I'm not worried about the stem part, because I'm going to actually do that with the dark green after. So don't worry about the stem. I just really want to focus on getting these leaves done in kind of this one stroke look. Here comes another one. So here's what I'm talking about, just kind of doing that. All right, bring it down there. Okay, I'm going to twirl my plate so I can get to this puppy. I don't know why I'm painting on the right. Well, otherwise I have to paint upside down. And normally, if I was painting, I paint upside down all the time. I really like to paint upside down. I actually think I do a better job when I paint upside down. I know, it's sort of weird, but I'm trying to show you, so I'm not doing it so much. Also, all these little feathers, I think that's what they're called, feathers on the flower. Putting a coat of the lime green there. Going to put a little bit at the base of this one. All right, this one's upside down, so this one's going to get its feather and its little leaves. Get a coat of lime green. All right, these leaves over here, lime green. I know you're on to me now. I love to do leaves. All right. Oops, looks like I forgot another flower over here. Why didn't you guys tell me? Get it? Isn't that funny? Video funny? No, probably not. All right, I'm going to do the feather because I'm over here, but I'm going to pause and clean my brush and do my red because I did mess that up. Probably you messed it up too if you were following me. My apologies, but let's go ahead and put a coat of red on here. Okay. Just make sure we rinse it afterwards and pat it dry to make sure. And we're back on the green to do our feathers. God, I hope that's what they're called. Or I'm going to have to redo this whole video. All right, so that's good. I think we got our leaves done pretty well there. Now, the other thing is if you want a lot of white background, like I have on this plate, then you can just leave it the way it is. But if you want it, now this one's a blue background, so it's a little different. But if you want it more filled in look, you can add your own leaves now wherever you want. Whoops, sorry about being in the light. Man, that light keeps moving. Keep coming over further and further. So if you wanted to, you could add more leaves in anywhere here. You know, you have the basic feel of the shape. But so that just gives you the option to do that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use some of my dark blue, my navy. It doesn't look navy blue right now. It looks like a really bright blue for you. Ignore that. It really is a navy blue. And we're going to use the back of a brush that does not have the chisel end on it. And we're just going to put some dots, a little, whoops, not a lot of paint, really. Less is more. And we're just going to put a few little dots. And I know it freaks you out when you do it with this, because right now it looks so bright, but really when it fires, it is a dark, 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 dark blue. Because not only are we doing that now here, but we're going to, I'm going to clean off that edge. We're going to then use the actual, we're going to use it as the liner brush that it is. And just starting from the middle here, we're going to add strokes. You don't have to do them all at once, just all the way around. We're going to be layering this. So eventually we're going to fill this whole center in with the blue. Make sure this is still on camera. Yes, it is. Okay. We're just going to fill it in. It doesn't all have to go in a row. In fact, I find that it works better if you're a little bit more random and just keep adding some layers to it as you need to. Okay. Ultimately, you're just filling that all in. And you are going to fill in the center too. Okay. That's the move. That's what that's supposed to look like. Back on this flower over here, where we had those little lines, we can add those marks back in with the dark blue. Of course, they don't have to be exactly on those lines, because now that you got the hang of that, remember I said you'll get the hang of it. So I'm just, some of them I can see through, some of them I can't. And then I also had some little dots. We can also use that brush to lightly outline between the orange. And then I use the back of the brush to add some of those dots in here. No fly, go. Shoo fly, shoo. All right, so the other thing, so we're going to do a lot of that outlining with the blue. It's okay if you want to. If your blue is very thick and you're having a hard time getting a thin line, go ahead and add a little bit of water to it. And so it becomes more inky-like, and you'll find it a lot easier to just kind of let it flow on. I don't know if you can see the difference when I've added some water to it. It just flows so easily off of there. Okay. This is right-handed work, so but I pulled it off. Shoo. I'm just doing this on the flowers. Okay, I'm kind of doing this around all of the flowers. So I'm using that slightly watered down, I promise you it's a dark blue. I feel like I have too much on there. Sometimes I do get too heavy-handed. So watch how much paint you bring up on your brush so that you have what you want. Oh, look, I have a friend. I have company. All right. Does not have to be exact. Should have not quite as watery as that. Okay. Boy, oh boy. Okay, so I'm also going to do that along the inside in here. Pretty much wherever there is a line, I'm going to be outlining it in this blue. I'm not going to do it between the orange and the red, so I don't want to be misleading. So I'm just doing the inside and the outside of this flower. All right, and then on this one, I'm just going to do, certainly on my little blue flower, I'm going to outline that in the blue. All 9 of them, right? I counted them before. And then this one also. You can even take this in a little bit further. Kind of joins up. Here's another one of my light blues. Another one of those light blues. All right. I don't know. I have to think that watching somebody else, you guys are probably doing your own thing and not watching me. That's probably the smart thing. All right. Probably just look up every now and then when I say something that you weren't expecting. I like to do it so that I like to, this is very me, not necessarily follow the line exactly, because I like it to look a little bit whack. I like it to be somewhat uneven and borderline whimsical. On this flower with the oranges, we're also going to outline each of these sections a little bit. Okay. Okay. It's the first time I've tried to do one of these in natural light. I'm not sure I'm a fan because the light keeps moving. I thought it would be a great idea, but I forgot about that whole the sun and earth and the rotation and so forth. So anyway, I'm just going to keep going and keep outlining. If I'm outlining anything other than what I think you expect, I will bring your attention to it. But other than that, I am outlining exactly what I said I'm doing, the edges of everything, red and blue. Okay, just not the leaves, just flowers right now. I'm going to add a little bit of water there, because it gets kind of thick and hard to use. Oops, there's one right in the middle. I know I still have that other orange, by the way, to go back to and add a second layer. So I think when this brush dries off, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay. Lots of outlining. You're going to either love outlining or hate outlining by the time we're done with this one. I've learned to love it. I thought I would hate it, but that was only... And sometimes, like when I do something that I really need to be precise on, I just go a lot slower. And I always, you know, anchor my hand. For this, I want a flowy design, so I'm not so concerned about it. About, you know, the fact that sometimes I grab a little air, meaning some of the white background gets inside of more I've outlined, but that's okay because I actually like that concept. That's kind of what I'm going for. So this is what I've got then for having my entire piece. Ooh, sorry. Entire piece outlined. Wow, I'm totally losing some light there. Let's see, I can either have my camera or my light. Okay, I'm moving the camera to make sure that I'm not sitting anyway. I apologize for the jiggliness, but I'm just trying to make sure you can see.